Okay, the next folder here you're going to see is the extra lesson 3 clamp components, and that has to do with back when we created the clamp. Remember modeling the slot, and we added the features for this bolt and nut. So that folder actually just contains the bolt and the nut that you could go back and assemble if you wanted to show that in a completed state. Just has two parts in there. The final one then is the practice clamp. This one actually has an assembly that's started. So if we go to browse and let's go to our building assemblies and we'll go to the practice clamp. It has an assembly already started called clamp underbar assembly, which just has a single component. You'll also want to open up this PDF file. So while that's opening, I will go open up the PDF file. This shows us which parts need to be assembled. So we're opening this. You can see all the components that make this up. So these are all in the folder, and we're going to start adding them in. Now the thing that's important here is you have a 3mm gap between the two plates, and so when you start bringing in these other components, they're going to be centered in that gap. So you'll see that there'll be a small offset on each side. Okay. So then we have a fully open position and we have a fully locked position. Okay, so we're going to go back to our parts library here. We want to go click on the home button. That's going to take us to the same folder where the clamp is. It should be in the practice clamp folder, and we want to bring in the right hand side. So currently we have the left hand side, so we want the right hand side. Remember, there's a 3mm gap. So if we get this into position and bring this in, so when we go to make that first relationship, we can actually specify the gap right here. So I could type in 3, and then I could pick this face and pick this face, and it's going to automatically create that 3mm gap between them. And then I can align the two holes, or I could align a face with a face, something to get three relationships to fully lock that. So you can see that now it's fully defined. Next thing then we're going to go to is the clamp arm. Okay, again, it gets centered between the other two. So this is really the point of this exercise, is to show how to do that. So I'm going to bring that part in. First of all, let me get it in the right orientation. And so I could line up the hole with the hole. And then I want it centered between these two plates. Now I don't have a plane shown here to center between a plane here, but we have a relationship in here called center plane. And the option that we want is double. And the reason we want double is because you're going to pick two faces on the part you're going to move, okay? And it will find the plane directly between those two faces, and it will align it to a plane between two more faces that we select. And so now if we go to a top view, you're going to see that that is perfectly centered, that we have a gap here and a gap here, and it's perfectly centered between those two plates. It still needs the degree of freedom to rotate, so we don't have anything locking it down that way. So in other words, if I do a drag and I pick this, the only degree of freedom it has is to rotate, which is what we want. The next thing we might add is the link that's back here. So we'll go to our parts library, find the link, and do the exact same thing. I'm going to line up the center with the center, and then I want to go do a center plane with the double option. If you have it set to single, it's going to take one selection, like maybe the center point in between two other faces that you select. In this case, we need double though. We want two faces on the link, centered between two faces on the plates. Now notice that time I picked the two outside faces, it makes no difference. As long as there are two opposing faces and you want the plane right in the middle, it could be the inside faces or the outside, it's the same thing. Okay. Next thing we might want to add is the handle assembly. So we'll drag in. Now, when it's a subassembly, you can't change the orientation in the preview window. So you actually have to do that once it's in the part, or in the assembly. So I'm going to drag it in. And here it's completely backwards, right? So how you can rotate it is if you hold down your control key and click and rotate the part. So I'm just left clicking, holding the control key down. I did have to select a face, and then it lets me rotate it, and then to deselect the face I just right click. Okay, this one I want to center, so I can do my center plane. I'm going to go from this face and this face, and I could center it on this, I could center it on one of these, doesn't matter, it's all the same center plane. We'll center it on the plates, and then I just need to align the two holes. So you got to get out of center plane, remember. You could go back to flash fit, or you could go straight to axial align. Align that cylinder, and I want to align those cylinders. So now if we do drag, you're going to see that's how the clamp works. Okay. All right. Next thing I may want to add is, let's see, what do we have here? We have our handle, we've got that, link. These are some pins that hold everything together. So I could bring in my rivets, and we'll do a cylindrical alignment, and we'll mate the face of the pin to the face of the part. And I need to place that several more times. So I want to teach that part. So the first thing I need to do is save my assembly. I'm going to click my rivet, and I want to pick Capture Fit, which is this button right here. And I want to capture those two relationships so that now as I continue to add the rivets, it's already going to highlight the right face. So there's a cylinder. That's the cylinder. And then the face I want to mate to is this one. And so you can quickly get your rivets in position. Okay, the next thing that we're going to add then is the threaded washer. There's a threaded washer that goes on the top and the bottom. So we will bring in our threaded washer. This face gets mated to the top. And then I could do my center plane, double. I want the two flats of the washer to go on the two flats. And there we go. So this part can be, we'll have to locate this in a minute, but you can see it can slide right now along there. We'll worry about that in just a second. Let's go ahead and add the bottom washer. Okay, the same one. This time I'm going to mate it to the top face, and that's backwards, so I need to flip it over. Click the flip button. In this case, I could just align the side to the side and then align the two holes of the two washers. So those have to be directly over top each other. The next part I want to place is the stopper stud. If I go back to my PDF, it shows that it's 10.5 millimeters from the bottom of the clamp to the bottom of the stopper. So let's go ahead and bring that in. I'll create my center line or my axial alignment, and then let's drag this down. Is I want to specify an offset, so I'm going to have a negative offset of 10.5 millimeters if I do a planar alignment. minus 10.5 from the end of the stopper to the face of the part. So I've just offset that 10.5 millimeters. Is what it told me it needed to be. Okay, it still can float. So if I do a drag on that, you're going to see it can still float along there. And I don't want that. So I need to go back to my PDF, and it shows me that there's an 18 millimeter offset from the center line to the small flat that's in here on my clamp arm. So what I want to do that is to turn on the center line, or the center planes for this, or the reference planes I should say, for this particular part. So I can go to Show Hide Component, turn on its reference planes. Okay. So if we go to the top view, you can see its reference planes are right on the center. And so I basically want to take this reference plane and offset it from that face. So I'll do my assemble, and my offset is 18 millimeters. It's going to be from this face, and I want to pick up that small face in here. And I can see it went the wrong way. So that should have been a negative 18. And then you can hide all the reference planes. So just go Show Hide All Components, select Hide All. It will hide those reference planes. So now that's locked to where it can't slide. So if I do drag, you can see the only thing it can do is move in the degree of freedom it has, which is to open and close. Now to get the fully closed position, this clamp arm, or this handle, is going to hit on the top of this radius. So what I could do there is actually build a relationship called tangent. We want a tangent relationship between this face and this face. And that will be the fully clamped position. If I want to see it in the fully open position, I would need to suppress that relationship. So I go to my handle. The last one I created here was the tangent relationship right here. So I'm going to right click, click suppress. So what that will allow me then is to do a drag. And I'll open this up. Okay, and the limit of travel is where this edge is going to hit this face. So if I bring it up, it's going to hit, and that's going to stop the travel. So what I could do is I could do a connect, another type of relationship. So I could use connect, and I want to connect the midpoint of that edge. So I want to connect the midpoint of that edge to that surface. That's going to be the fully open position. So now I have two positions. So if I want to go back to the open position, I could click on the handle. I could suppress the connect, right? So that will allow me to then drag the handle back to close to position. And then I could go back to the handle to get the fully closed position and unsuppress that tangent relationship. And there's the fully closed position.